Pros.
Good afternoon. I'm Karen Jackson. Welcome to another edition of Through My Lens. And today we are doing a special series, a kickoff to men making moves, men who are making impacts in our lives, in our communities, and in our families. And so we are just taking this special opportunity to celebrate our men and to celebrate all the wonderful work that they're doing in our families and also the impact that they're making in our community and how we can support them and join them in their efforts. And so throughout the day, I have been interviewing different men from different walks of life. And our special guest this afternoon is Donald Domineck. He is the Chief Consultation Officer for the Dayton Black Panthers. And I am so excited to have you here this afternoon, Donald. How are you this afternoon?
I'm good. Thank you for the invite.
Sure, sure. And so there's so many things that I want to talk to you about. So we're going to have to do a part two of this conversation, okay? Just to let you know off from the very beginning.
Right, that's fine.
Okay, but what I want to talk to you about today is um, I was so excited to see the news that Juneteenth is now going to be a federal holiday.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts about that?
I'm excited also. I think there's a kind of a new movement going on in this country, a pro-black movement because of mainly lately. I think it was because of the incident with George Floyd and the way the nation rose up. Not just black folks, but sympathetic whites and others rose up, and I think that kind of prompted Congress and the Senate and local governments and state governments to kind of pause and say, hey, um, we gotta do something different. We gotta make some changes in this country. We gotta honor these holidays and different things that African Americans have been talking about for years. So I'm excited that we're moving in that direction, and hopefully we can keep that momentum going.
Absolutely. And I know that you're heavily involved in a local celebration. Talk to us a little bit about what that looks like, where is it going to be, and give us more details.
Well, last year actually during COVID, Wesley Center usually does the Juneteenth Fest, but they bowed out because of COVID, and some people in the community asked that the Black Panthers want to lead out in organizing Juneteenth. So we partnered with some young people. We had a festival last year, and so this year, the Black Panthers, myself, I called on a diverse group of people to help organize this year's festival. So um, we're having a fest. It starts today, Friday, June 18th, with an opening ceremony. It's at Broadway Park. That's on the corner of Superior and Broadway Avenue. Starts at 4:30 p.m. We're going to open up with a traditional libation service that's going to be held by the Africana Council of Elders. Today, we're going to feature the young people in the community. Deja Demings and her organization, the Young Black Professionals, are doing a panel discussion entitled Reimagining Freedom.
Mm.
Tomorrow, Saturday, June 19th, we're going to start off with a parade that's going to leave Gem City Market. Tasha Roundtree is heading out in that parade. We're going to march up 2 blocks to Broadway Park on the corner of Superior and Broadway Avenue, where we're going to have a big fest. We'll have entertainment by a guy named Big Ton and his experience, which is about six different groups. We're going to have about 50 vendors. We're going to have some drill teams, motorcycle clubs. There'll be some pony rides for the kids. We're going to have some free snacks. And We're going to have a few speakers and poets in between the entertainment. And yeah, we're going to have some social services out there giving away information, combined health districts coming out, Goodwill's coming out, some of the schools in the charter schools in the area. So we're looking forward to having a good time. We want to invite the entire community to come out, and hopefully we could duplicate this in the coming years. There are maybe 7 or 8 festivals going on across the region, but this festival we really are working hard to make it the People's Fest. So it'll be grassroots funded and operated by the people. One of our main sticklers is we don't want this festival to be co-opted by any corporations. So we do accept the government donations because we feel like that's the people's money. So hopefully going forward, we can really make this a community celebration and a time of, fellowship and fun for people in the inner city of Dayton.
And I think it's important in listening to the different activities that you have going on. I see that you are focusing a lot on our young people, which I think is important. Talk to me about why that is important to be a part of this celebration.
Well, I think, first of all, when we talk about Black history or things pertaining to Black people, um, in this country. Traditionally we look back to Africa, we look back to slavery, and that's all good and well. But I think we've been in America for 400 years. Excuse me. African Americans have achieved a lot in the areas of art and music and literature and fashion. And we have to be careful that we don't exclude the current generation, and we don't get caught up into what we did in the past and leave it right there. We have to make room for our young people to be able to express their Blackness in the way they express their Blackness, as long as it's in good taste and it's not vulgar. In order for us not to alienate them, we have to include them because we know um, what's waiting for them. If we don't bring them into positive culture and events like this, we know there's a lot of pitfalls out there that are awaiting our kids. So we have to be deliberate and understanding and patient um, about letting them come and be involved in our activities like this Juneteenth Festival.
Well, I'm really just honored to have you here and to talk about just the importance. What is the importance of Juneteenth? And we've heard a lot. There's a lot of different celebrations, and but what is the importance of? For me personally, I just feel like it's important for all of us to celebrate. And so if
Right,
it means we have multiple celebrations, I'm all
right,
for it, because
right.
it's important that we celebrate and we recognize and we acknowledge our history, but where we want to go and what new history we want to create. What are
Right.
your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm honored also that, and I feel good about the fact that this thing has caught on like it has. I remember years ago, Dr. Robert Walker was having Juneteenth Fest,
Hmm.
and a lot of folks didn't really understand what it meant or what it was about. And there were others who were advocating for Juneteenth years ago, man. And so I honored Dr. Walker, Robert Walker, and some of the others that were the pioneers of Juneteenth. Also, I feel honored that we were able at the front end to kind of re-pioneer Juneteenth Festival, the Black Panthers in Dayton. And I think the significance is if you look at what Juneteenth was, there were some slaves down in Galveston, Texas, after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, freeing the slaves. They didn't get the word till 2.5 years later. and one of the generals with the Union Army went to Galveston, Texas, to let those people know that you guys are free. You can
Mhm.
leave the plantation. Now, here's my thing. We're talking about today. We're talking about reimagining freedom, and I think if you look at that incident on June 19th, I think it was 1867 or something like that. If you look at um, that incident, what happened was a lot of those slaves were freed uh, physically. At least that was what
Mhm.
was on paper. But because they didn't have anywhere to go, when they let a lot of them stayed there on that plantation. And if you look, do history on that area even today, a lot of those blacks, their families are still right there in that area. And so a lot of them stayed on as sharecroppers, and things of that nature, because they didn't have the resources to be truly free. So
Mhm.
today, when we talk about Juneteenth Festival, I think we should include the fact that we should look at that history and see, how can you be free if you don't have any money? How can you be free if you're sick? How
Mhm.
can you be truly free if you don't own any land, if you don't have any place to go? And you really think about what they had to face, um, even in a so-called free state, right? So we really
Mhm.
have to hook that up to what's going on nowadays in our lives and say, hey, um, let the Juneteenth Festival be a catalyst for real freedom for Black folks. So we're talking about possibly reparations, and that could look a whole lot of different ways, right? We're talking
Mhm.
about, and that's what we're doing this year. We're bringing in the health agencies in this year because we need to be um, liberated from health problems. We're talking
Mhm.
about um, equal justice under the law. So we talking about Black people having the same rights as everybody else. We talking about freedom from police harassment and police brutality. We just had George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and some other cases. So I think Juneteenth should be not just a big picnic or a big cookout, but it has to have meaning, and that's why the Black Panther Party Festival um, initially was designed as a grassroots organization festival. So we weren't bogged down with having to solicit money from big corporations, and then they come back later and say, well, next year if you bring this controversial speaker or this controversial issue, we're not going to give you any money. So this fest is for the people, by the people, empowered by the people, and we think that Juneteenth should be viewed as that all over the country.
And I think that is a important thing to highlight because I know when Martin Luther King Day was first initiated, it was important that it not be just another day off.
Right,
It
exactly.
is it has to be a day on for advocacy, a day on for what we can really do to make a difference in our lives personally and in the lives of everyone in the community and for our children and the generations to come. So
Right.
I totally agree with you on that, and I appreciate and commend you and your organization for continuing to be on the battlegrounds and raising the important issues and speaking truth to power. I think that is one of the most important things that we can do to really reimagine what our futures are going to look like is being able to speak truth to power and really being able to roll up our sleeves and figure out what role we can play to make a difference. So I really, really appreciate all your work and all your efforts. But I want to ask you, what has been the inspiration for you to um, stay involved in this kind of work? Because I know it's not easy, and I know you make some friends, you lose some friends
Right.
um, in this process. So, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you inspired to continue the good fight?
I'm gonna tell you, I grew up in Dayton View neighborhood in the '60s and the '70s, right? And
Hmm.
for the most part, I had a really beautiful childhood, you know. And I watched things like the crack epidemic come in and destroy not only the neighborhoods, but destroy families. Um, you know, a lot of people died. A lot of people went to jail. You know, we got a lot of abandoned houses and just rundown stuff in general. And, um, you know, I spent a little time in the streets myself. And so when God brought me out, you know, I made a commitment that I would do all I can to restore um, and regenerate our community. And that became my passion. That became my purpose. I really feel like that um, the storms that I went through early in life were a setup for God to give me my real purpose in life, man. And I've lived a couple lifetimes, and in one lifetime, I always tell people. And so, you know, but anytime you do some positive things and you do it under the Black Panther name, it's going to be controversial with both white folks and black folks. And anytime you said something earlier about speaking truth to power, you know, truth is the enemy of the world right now, right? And Trump did a lot to increase that type of thing. So I think it's very important that we all embrace truth. We embrace community. We embrace grassroots community. We embrace a spirit of self-determination, and we stop waiting on others to do for us what we can do for ourselves. And I think
Mhm.
it's a mistake for us um, to want um, to want an improvement in our community so bad to where we run back to the oppressor or we run back to the people that exploited us in the past and we do the same thing over again. So, you know, that's kind of my catalyst. This is my life. This is my life work. Is you take the good with the bad. You know, I read the scripture. I like the Psalms and David. God said he was a man after his own heart, but he had a lot of enemies.
Mhm.
You run into you know the anti um run into the anti um, Donald Domineck club. So, but I'm still
Mhm.
going forward, and yeah,
And so I have to say happy Father's Day to you, early happy Father's Day to you, I and I look forward to your continued support, your continued efforts. And if you want to participate, again, that's the Juneteenth celebration. It's going to take place at the park on Broadway in Superior. And I think Donald just came back to us, so we'll add him back in to see what final remarks, Donald, do you have to
I'm
our
sorry.
people about inspiring and motivating them?
I just like to encourage everybody um, to try to adopt a spirit of self-determination. I think the key for African Americans and other poor people, especially in the inner city, is to learn to do things for ourselves, to support those grassroots organizations who are really the kind of the salt and the light in this country, and to be open-minded and willing to be involved in positive change and connect with people, like-minded people, and let's create something positive for our children and our grandchildren.
Absolutely. And I think you said it best, in the words of the late John Lewis, let's continue to get in good trouble.
That's
That
it.
not only impacts, our lives, but our families and our grandchildren and great grandchildren and generations to come.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So we thank you so much. I was saying before you got cut off, happy Father's Day to you, a early happy Father's Day. I know that your kids and grandkids, they're probably going to be spoiling you rotten, and I'll look forward to some images of all the details of what that's going to take place.
Oh yeah, you know. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And again, if someone wants to help with the celebration, is there you still need volunteers, and who would they contact?
They would contact me. You could contact me, Donald Domineck, on Facebook, or you could actually call me at 937-251-7048, or you could look me up on the Dayton Chapter, New Black Panther Party Facebook page.
All right, Mr. Dominic, we thank you so much for all your hard work and your advocacy, and we're gonna have you back for part two because I have more questions to ask you.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too, and
All
God
right.
bless.
God bless you. Mhm.
So we thank you so much for being a part of another edition of Through My Lens. It is a special series this today. We are highlighting the men in our lives who are making positive impacts, not just in our lives, but in the lives of others throughout our community and throughout the world. So we thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in and looking forward to the next edition of Through My Lens. God bless.